Hello, my name is Shaun Smith. I'm looking forward to coming to Helsinki on the 24th and 25th of January to deliver a CX Masterclass. This is a workshop designed for senior executives who are involved in delivering customer experience and want to take it to the next level for their organizations. We're also going to have a VIP brunch. This will be an opportunity which we call food for thought, an opportunity to meet with like-minded people, to have stimulating conversation over some nice food. And we're looking forward to that event very much indeed. Why is purpose so important? Well, the answer is that now consumers have so much choice. They can buy pretty much whatever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want, through the internet, through so many different channels. And with all of that choice comes confusion. With all of that choice comes uncertainty. And an organisation that has a strong sense of purpose allows it to be very focused, very intentional in what it creates for its customers, the value that it creates for its customers. And that's essentially what a purpose does. The other thing that a purpose does is it acts like a lighthouse, like a beacon. It attracts the kinds of customers who want to do business with an organisation like yours because they know what you stand for. It also attracts employees too, because employees want to work for organisations that they identify with, that they're going to be comfortable fitting into. And also, just like a lighthouse, it warns off those employees that aren't perhaps going to be a right fit for you. So purpose is increasingly important because it's the way you create profit. So how do you drive cultural change in an organisation? Well, we have a term which we call the head, the heart and the hands. So the head part is telling your people, explaining to your people why something matters, why something has to change. And that may well be because of customer feedback, it may be because of competitive threats, it may be because you see a huge opportunity. But telling people why is so important, first of all. And that's where purpose comes in, because purpose creates meaning for people. The second thing you need then to do is to focus on the heart, which is why should they care? What's in it for customers? What's in it for employees? What's the benefit? So why should they care about that particular change in the organisation? And that can be through motivation, it can be through reward systems and many other ways. And the third thing you need to do is to give them the hands, the skills, the tools to be able to behave in that way. And that comes through training, it comes through new processes, perhaps it comes through organisational change. But the important thing is to allow people to behave in the way that you want them to behave and make it easy for them to do so. So the head, the heart and the hands all play a part in creating organisational change. So I'm often asked, where do you start when creating a better customer experience? And perhaps not surprisingly, the place to start is with your customers. So whenever working with large organisations, the first thing we do, having perhaps done some stakeholder interviews and understood the nature of the organisation, is to go out and talk to customers. And not just any customers. It's important that you start with your most valuable customers because they generally represent the significant part of your revenues and your profits. Pareto rules would generally indicate that perhaps 80% of your profits come from 20% of your customers. So those are the ones to start with. And that fundamentally is the difference between customer experience research, which we do, and market research. Market research seems to want to understand the mass market. What we want to do is to understand what drives the behaviour of your most valuable customers. So that is the place to start. Forrester did a significant study, and they found that the number one reason for failure in customer experience initiatives is lack of strategy. And recent research in Finland has found that 41% of the reason for failure in customer experience is also lack of strategy. So that seems to be a significant issue for organisations. And that's certainly our experience too. In working with organisations all over the world, We've seen lots of great initiatives, but unless there is something that binds them together, that creates that sense of strategy, it's very difficult to sustain them. And when we work with organisations, one of the things that we do is create an alignment framework. And that alignment framework on one page pulls together the purpose of the organisation, its strategy, what are the significant things it's going to do in order to achieve that purpose, what it promises to its customers, the experience that it wants to create, and then what the implications are for people, processes and products. And that simple framework creates a very powerful visual way of seeing the linkages between various initiatives in the organisations. Because unless you understand how you want your people to behave in order to deliver the experience strategy, unless you understand what it requires of your processes, unless you understand what kinds of products that you need, then all of those things are likely to be developed in isolation and therefore not fit the strategy that you're requiring. So alignment is key, and that's what gives you your strategic focus. So we've talked about where does an organisation start, and we said start with your customers. We've talked about the need for strategy and for an alignment framework. Another key success factor is leadership. I've never seen an organisation succeed in customer experience without the leadership team being committed and passionate and engaged in the process. So a warning sign for me when we work with organisations is if perhaps the CEO says, oh, well, you know what, we've appointed this person as our customer experience director, and that person's going to work with you, and let me know, later on if there's anything we need to do, or you need to speak to me, or whatever. That's a warning sign. I think senior executives need to make it a primary agenda item for them. That isn't to say that they need to spend all their time on it, but it does mean to say that they need to be actively engaged in it. Because fundamentally, at the end of the day, people in organisations look upwards, and they look at what the chief executive and the board of directors are paying attention to. And if they're not paying attention to the customer, if they're not paying attention to the customer experience, then the conclusion that people will come to is it's not that important. And guess what? They won't pay attention to it either. Of course, customer experience isn't new. It's been around for a long time now. I wrote my first book about it in about 2000. And many organisations all over the world are embarking on customer experience initiatives, and many of them are very mature in their efforts. And so the question is, if you are mature, if you are a long way down that journey, where do you look to find the extra gains? Where are the areas perhaps which are neglected? I think for one for me, which I often see, is that organisations do the design work. So they do the research, they come up with a new design of the experience, perhaps they go through some leadership alignment, which is all great, and then they do the training. But oftentimes what you find is that the training is generic, what we call vanilla. And if you give vanilla or generic training, well, guess what? You'll get vanilla or generic service and experience on the back of it. So the one thing to think about is to really look at the extent to which your training itself is branded. Is it in the style of the kind of experience you want to create for your customers? If you want your customer experience to be innovative and exciting and energizing, is your training innovative and exciting and energizing? And if it's not, you're not likely to generate the experience that you want. So think about the training that you give your people as being almost like a mirror of the experience you want to create for your customers. And the closer you can make those two things in the feel of them, the more powerful it will likely be. And that comes from careful design, it comes from innovative thinking when it comes to providing the training. So for example, when we were working with Burberry and we looked at the high performers, we identified something like 120 or 130 behaviours of high performing people. And from that we developed 8 modules, and each one of those modules dealt with a particular aspect and brought it to life in a very engaging way. And unless you do that, you just end up with, as I said, vanilla service. I spoke about the need for alignment and creating a strategic framework to align all of the efforts in organisations. And that's particularly important when you think about your internal functions, Because in order to create a great experience, it does mean it needs to be the effort of everybody in the organisation. And internal functions need to have a line of sight. They need to be able to look through to the end customer and understand how they impact the end customer. If your legal department has the view that their job is to protect the organisation, and therefore what they'll do is to go painstakingly through every single contract to make sure that every single clause is protecting the organisation, that's not likely to result in an effective and efficient way of contracting with customers. It's likely to be bureaucratic and slow and frustrating. If, however, they see their role as making sure that the needs of the customer and the needs of the organisation are balanced in an effective way, then that's more likely to cause them to go about their role in a way which is going to be effective for the customer too. So it's really important for functions to have that understanding of how they impact on the experience and to respond accordingly. I'm often asked how long it takes to create customer experience and to implement it in an organisation. And the answer is, it depends on the size of the organisation, the size of the market, the maturity and so on. But as a rule of thumb, I would say that to really become habitual for an organisation to behave in that way because it feels the right way can take 2 or 3 years. However, you can see results quite quickly. When I was working with British Airways, we saw a significant change in the perceptions of customers in just about 8 months. So you can get short-term results. And the question is, how do you do that? Well, we know that changing technology, changing processes can take a long time. So the place to start is with your people. Oftentimes, customers can perceive changes in the attitude and behaviour of your people much faster than they can see changes to processes or to systems. And also that's the way that you can very much create a short-term effect in your organisation that becomes self-reinforcing. Because if you get your people to behave in a different way, and they see the results of that, they get more motivated, and so therefore they behave in that way more, and so it goes on. You get a virtual cycle set up with positive customer feedback, positive employee behaviour, high morale. And if you can get that cycle working for you, that can be a really powerful way of buying time whilst you fix some of the more difficult things like technology and processes. So start with your people. So I hope you found some of these answers, some of these points useful for your organisation. And of course, if you'd like to know much more in-depth information, to hear some great examples of organisations that have delivered outstanding customer experiences, to find out the detail from the research that I've done over the last years for my books, and to have an opportunity of asking questions of me, then come along to the CX Masterclass on the 25th and 25th of January, and join us for the VIP brunch. I'm sure you'll find it food for thought. See you there.